To nobody's surprise, players ranked the Browns almost dead last in rankings. Player rankings came out, all team rankings came out, and the Browns were not favored at all by the players ranking the organization. Probably not a surprise, but still hurts nonetheless.
It does to an extent, but again, it's not a surprise. So why am I going to be hurt at the end of the day? Let's go through the rankings real quick and then we can kind of react to them. I have some insight on a few of these just from knowing people around and whatnot, but let's talk about it. So we have treatment of families at D minus. We have home game field at B minus, meaning the actual field they play on. Food and dining area is a D plus. Nutritionist is a C plus. Locker room is an F. That isn't surprising. I'll get to that in a second. Training room C, training staff C plus, weight room B plus, strength coaches B plus, position coaches B minus, offensive coordinator D plus, defensive coordinator A plus, special teams coordinator D, team travel D minus, head coach C minus, general manager C, ownership C, overall rank 30 out of all of the teams. There's a couple highlights there, in my opinion. The first one being, of course, that Kevin Stefanski is ranked pretty low there in terms of head
The worst
coaches. Same
coach.
thing. He was the worst coach. Let me pull that
Yeah.
graphic up real quick. You can see he's behind a lot of different names. I think it's hilarious that Harbaugh's on the bottom of the list, by the way. I didn't notice that earlier. Worst coach, though, there's also the offensive coordinator and special teams coordinator getting pretty low ranks there. Are you surprised by either of those as well?
No, not really. The one that stuck out to me that made me chuckle was treatment of families because I immediately thought of Wyatt Teller. That's the family that popped into my head. But top to bottom, we've talked about the Browns being a chaos organization, and I think we see that a little bit in the rankings.
Yeah, the treatment of families is interesting because I know someone who works with the organization, especially in like some of the daycare services they have for the game, and they've cut back on doing that so much in the last couple years. Like it used to be like an all day thing. Now it's like bring them an hour before the game, and you have to pick them up 30 minutes after kick or last whistle or whatever. So it's little things like that that like why are we cheaping out on that? Why does it like just let them have all
Okay,
the
but
the treatment?
to the same token, like, do you have daycare, at your work? Like, these are athletes paid millions of dollars. That comes across as a little whiny to me.
Nah, well, when other teams are doing it, I mean, you kind of don't feel like you're being treated well. You know what I mean? If you see a company across the street treating its employees 10 times better, paying them the same exact money, doing the same exact thing that you're doing, Eric, wouldn't you be upset that your company isn't doing it and refusing to?
That's called life. I mean, I don't know. That's just getting a little too beyond the pale for me.
That's fair, I guess. I just think it makes sense. Locker room is interesting to me because of how messed up the Berea facility is right now with all the construction they're doing, and of course with the stadium coming eventually. So the locker room being an F isn't a surprise, but it's interesting because it is an F. Team travel is interesting too, D minus. I think, and I would hope that changes a little bit with Todd Monken and how they run and go about travel. But I wonder if that has to do more so with like the facilities they use to travel. You know what I mean? Whether it be whatever plane they take, whether it be whatever buses they take for the local games, if they're just not good, not up to snuff, not high quality, not bougie NFL level. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it makes me wonder though, like what is expected and what's the norm, right? Um, I don't know. They're flying on their own planes. Like it's not like they're flying coach. I don't know. This whole player survey thing, I don't like it to an extent, and I'm not on side owner or anything, but it just comes across as entitled athletes like expecting more, and I don't know why. It just rubs me the wrong way for some reason.
See, and this comes down to the argument for me, the millionaires versus billionaires, and I'm always going to side with the millionaire players instead of the billionaires. Like, shell out another million for a better plane. You should if other teams are able to do it, and
I'm
especially if
not
you're Jimmy
siding
Haslam.
with either. First of all, every team in the NFL, is aligned with an airline that flies them. their own 767 plane that's decked out. Like it's not Air Force One. Like so the expectation here is what I'm getting at. Like if team travel, like you have to be ranked for these teams 1 to 32. You're going to fall somewhere in that ranking, right? That doesn't mean that we have worse travel accommodations than the Cowboys or the Steelers or the Giants or whatever. But they have to grade it somehow. So I just that's my point here. It's not being billionaires versus millionaires. It's like are expectations even realistic here? And I
I
don't
think
know
so.
the answer to these questions,
And
honestly.
my argument back to that will forever and always be if there's a team with a higher grade, then there should be higher expectations because if other teams can do it, so can you. I would even be
But
able
hold
to.
on,
Okay,
just to counterpoint that real quick. Let's say the Lions scored a B plus on travel, the Browns were whatever they were at, but they have the exact same travel arrangements. That's possible in theory.
true. That's
Browns
very
players
true.
just scored it lower. So, like, you have to take all these with a grain of salt because you have no idea why they're scoring what the way they're scoring it. Like, you'd have to actually talk to the players that evaluated it and scored it this way to get an idea of why, because otherwise you can't compare. You can't say, well, the 49ers got a B plus, the Browns got a D plus, Browns must really suck. Maybe they do, but we just don't know because it could be very similar across the board and our players are just ranking them because they're dissatisfied because they won 5 games. Like so much goes into this. I just don't know that we can pick out as much as we're picking out because we just don't know. We don't have enough facts on it.
That's fair. I guess record and satisfaction of record might have a huge role in what happens
Probably.
here too. That would probably be my guess as well. But then you look at a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers, a perennial playoff maker, and they were ranked 32 of 32 overall. They get Fs across the board and a lot of different things that you would never expect. Ownership is a D minus, especially for an ownership group in a franchise that is thought of so highly in the Pittsburgh Steelers. I almost said the Cleveland Browns. We are not talking about them right now. It's really interesting when you look at that they are dead last for a lot of different categories there. But I'll also take the dancing on the Steelers' grave for a minute that the Browns were ranked higher than them in this.
Hold up though, because pull that back up for a second.
I got you.
Because here's the key of why the Browns have failed habitually. The Steelers ranked poorly in things like the game field, and things like the locker room, and things like travel. Where they ranked pretty damn well is when you get to the coaching staff. B's and A's across the board there for the most part. I think that matters more than team facilities, for example, in building a perennial, as you say, playoff contender or at least playoff maker. They had good coaching. So I just find that really interesting because that section there, right there in the middle, probably matters a lot more than everything else.
Yeah, you're probably right. I look at training staff and that kind of thing too, the treatment of injuries and compare it, and they rank higher than us. And of course, our coaching staff ranks low. We fired our head coach; he was a C minus, the lowest. The offensive coordinator, a D plus. Special teams coordinator, D. We're talking, of course, about Tommy Reese. We're talking about. Oh God, I forget his name now. What's his name? Our old special teams, Bubba Ventrone.
Bubba,
I
yeah, I was
finally
gonna say
erased
you
him from my mind.
screamed
Yeah,
every week to fire him. Um, Let me ask you this, just talking because Stefanski being ranked so low by his own players, why is he glazed so much?
I don't know why the NFL circles love him so much. You could ask maybe the same question about Andrew Berry. I know later this week we're going to talk about all the news that finally trickles out from the combine, but one of the story beats that came from the combine is the fact that NFL circles think so highly of Andrew Berry because of his attention to detail, how he'll double back on a trade talk that they had maybe at the deadline now this time to see if maybe it works. Chris Olave is an example of that, and we'll get into that later this week, but it makes you think why when you're talking about the circles that be, the powers that be, the circle of trust above the NFL, why they think so highly of like a Kevin Stefanski or an Andrew Berry when players are ranking them how low again? What was Berry at? A C and a C minus? That's not anything great. It's like average to you
Well,
kind of suck.
the general manager score as rated by players, I completely discount. Like Andrew Berry is essentially running a business.
Right.
Players aren't necessarily going to be happy with the decisions he's making because he's packing people off or he's making and having uncomfortable decisions. I think the head coach is a very different situation. If your players are ranking you very low as a head coach, that's a direct correlation, obviously, because that's your direct boss. That's who's
Right.
coaching you, right? So I take a little I put an asterisk next to the GM there because again, completely different. And I think that Andrew Barry's looked well upon in NFL circles because of how he conducts business. Every day he has to interact with his fellow GMs, other presidents of these teams, and they like him because he does business well. We can talk all day about whether or not he hits or he makes the right moves, et cetera, et cetera. But in terms of how he does business, part one is probably a lot of it. Don't be an asshole. He probably is a solid businessman, and I think that matters. So I would just take it with a grain of salt coming from players, but when it's your head coach and that's the one-on-one relationship, that speaks volumes in my opinion. And the fact that regularly Kevin Stefanski's ranked low by his players, and then also his teams haven't performed the last several years, that's where I have a disconnect of I don't understand why they think he's some miracle worker and he's like all of a sudden Atlanta's going to be some kind of playoff team or something. I just don't get it.
And that was my question for you too, because of course, you talk about Tommy Rees, who's going to be the offensive coordinator over in Atlanta. He's a D plus. Kevin Stefanski's a C minus, lowest ranked coach. If you were an Atlanta fan, like how do you feel seeing that? Because I would be doing the shaking my head. The Browns is the Browns. The stuff we do as fans after we've had to watch what the Browns have been up and down and in between since 1999. I would be pissed, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think if to answer your original question, if you're a Falcons fan, I don't think you buy too much into this. It's the same reason that if we saw grades of Monken that were low right now, we'd say, well, we've liked everything we see so far. Like it's a whole different situation, right? Where I'd be concerned is looking at the actual on-field product and what Kevin Stefanski did while he was with the Browns. I think that looking back, he got coach of the year twice. Those really seem like outlier seasons where he had phenomenal quarterback play, whether it be from Baker or several quarterbacks, frankly.
Right.
Obviously, good O line, etc. Like there was good talent there. Did he necessarily put in game plans that were so outstanding that, like, that he was the reason we were winning in those 2 seasons that he was coach of the year? I think the answer is no. If you go back and really evaluate coaching talent, like I'm not saying he's terrible. Like I'm not trying to say that I'm not trying to reconstruct the past at all. But nothing super impresses me. So when you do a deep dive, like that's where I get confused on and where Atlanta fans frankly should be a little concerned. He gets stuck in his ways and he doesn't evolve. So we'll see what happens. He has a better situation personnel wise, probably right now going down there. But I don't believe in him as being some kind of culture changer. And that's what you need these days.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be that either. It's funny how much he's doubling down on the same stuff he did here in Cleveland. There's reports that maybe Joe Flacco ends up in Atlanta as a spot starter if Michael Penix isn't ready, or they decide Michael Penix isn't the guy. Of course, there's the elusive Dylan Gabriel trade rumors that I don't know if it's just us as fans at this point trying to throw it out there because we don't want to have both of these rookies on this roster, and this fan base far and away favors Shador Sanders. You mentioned Todd Monken's grade, though, and I know you were just using it as an example, but obviously he did get graded because he was the offensive coordinator of the Baltimore Ravens. He got a B
Mhm.
minus. It's not anything like, oh my God, he got an A plus. He's great, but a B minus, I'll take that over our C minus any day. I'll sure as hell take it over our D plus for our offensive coordinator, considering he's going to come in here, he's going to call the plays, he's effectively going to be in part ways an offensive coordinator. So that's a good cosign from a really good franchise and a really good team, a really good offensive unit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And what we've seen from Monken is that he's able to adapt his playmaking to the personnel he has. That's was my chief complaint about Kevin Stefanski and the offenses that he's run is that he can't do that. He has one really good scripted series and then it's like it goes out the window. So from what I've seen from Monken, I think that's really a positive. And again, I take all these grades with a grain of salt anyway. Like, yeah, it's great. You got a better grade, but at the end of the day, the proof is in the on-field product, and we'll see real soon, come September, come October, of what that product looks like.
Yeah, and just to go over it one more time, talking the Browns grades too, a lot of the low areas, in my opinion, are all things that can change very quickly, especially with the new stadium. You're talking about the home game field, you're talking about the locker room. They'll have a lot more locker room space, considering that stadium will be right next to the Berea building, and I believe
So
that's
what
where
is
they're
that what is that line though? Is locker room like how guys feel,
no,
or is that literal facilities?
the facilities. The locker room at
Okay.
Berea right now is trash. It's tiny because of all the work that they're doing and all of that. The actual physical locker room,
Well,
like their main locker room, will be at the stadium when the new stadium's built.
no, I'm pretty sure that's talking about the locker room at the stadium because that's the one they go into during a game, during halftime or whatever. No one ever talks about the locker room at the training facility. That
No,
doesn't
it's
even make sense.
It's the Berea one. It's the main locker room they use because they don't stay close to the stadium. They stop and get the stuff from the locker room and go there. Not the players, obviously. The players aren't doing that. They're NFL players. But the main locker room, the one they use day in and day out, is the one in Berea. It's the Berea locker room they're
No, I
talking about here.
understand where they practice and whatnot, but when you say locker room, you think of when you're playing in a game.
No, I would point I mean, in any of my experience, my locker room was my locker room was my locker room. I didn't play big enough football to have a separate stadium 20 miles away
Right.
or whatever. But to me, I would think of it for sure as the locker room I'm using day in and day out. I'm keeping my stuff there. The laundry's there. It's the
I think
facility
you're
locker room.
wrong about that actually.
I don't think I am. I think I'm with the
Well, when they
popular
say
opinion.
field, they're not talking about the practice facility. Like, I don't know, that doesn't
Yeah,
jive with me, but
because to pull it up again, it's home game field as opposed to just the locker room. They're talking about the food and dining area that they use at Berea. You know what I mean?
no, I guess that's fair. I don't know. I that would be interesting. I think we need a breakdown of that one a little more.
Anything that I saw on it, it was talking about the Berea locker room. So if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments down below if it's talking about the locker room over at Huntington Bank Field, because that locker room actually looks pretty good from all the videos and stuff you see from behind the scenes, you know?
Do you think, Noah, that when they move to the new stadium, because Berea will be literally, it'll be a 5-minute drive now. Do you
Yeah.
think they will be doing some practices throughout the week at that stadium, like some game type situational practices since they'll be so close?
Maybe. I would think I don't know. That's an interesting question because it's indoor, right? So it's a climate controlled facility. It's a full football field. You can do stuff like that. So maybe the answer is yes.
You
In
could pipe in
history,
crowd noise and music and like really have a game feel for a practice walkthrough.
I think about during COVID when they didn't have training camp because of close proximity and stuff. They had a training camp practice at the actual Brown Stadium over here on the lakefront. So I wouldn't be surprised. I feel like, sometimes you go do that. You hear about kickers, especially new kickers coming into Cleveland, going to practice at the stadium as opposed to just on the practice field. So yeah, I think eventually we would see something like that. And maybe they'll do it for the fanfare aspect as well. Show off the new stadium, maybe to people who can't buy tickets the first year. I think you will see it 100%.
I was just thinking, it's funny you brought up kickers because I was thinking, thank God, I know it benefits both teams, but no more swirling wind for our kickers to deal with.
Amen to that. Listen, Eric, we got a voicemail from our video on Friday talking about Malik Willis and, of course, Ty Simpson. This voicemail is about Ty Simpson from apparently his number one fan in the Cleveland area, Lawrence Charles. He has a nice long voicemail. We'll listen to it, give it our reaction. You ready for it, man?
Sure, let's hit play.
Hey, fellas, listen, I just wanted to say that yes, I deserve my credit because I've been in your comments for months, at least for a good month, stating my case. I said that the Browns will draft Ty Simpson at number 6 overall if they don't move up to do it. People called me crazy, and at this point, people are still calling me crazy. And that's fair. That's fine. But I pointed out that Ty Simpson is a dual threat quarterback. His teammates nicknamed him Mike Vick. Actually, in a playful way, Vanilla Vick, which is lame, but hilarious at the same time. The guy was getting comped as Joe Burrow and Andrew Luck and was the number one quarterback prior to week 9, where he ended up with 3 injuries and, it was just revealed that he had some stomach issues because of the medication he was taking for his back injury. So that made him lose his weight and everything else. He is actually the most scheme agnostic quarterback because he sat there 5 years at Alabama. He's learned West Coast, he's learned spread, and he's learned the pro offense. He is the most scheme agnostic. This year, I realized that he was in the SEC coming out of high school as a 4 or 5-star quarterback, and Monken was down there recruiting about the same time. I knew he knew Ty Simpson. I didn't know for sure, but I knew it. And here it is. I'm looking like a genius. We'll see what happens. Maybe I'll be a full-on first-level genius after the draft, but I would suggest all Browns fans look at his tape. Don't listen to these draft experts. Look at his tape.
First of all, you can leave us a voicemail too. Call 216-260-3433. We will play it on the show. First things first, I agree with part of what Lawrence Charles is saying here. The parts I agree with, we talked about this. His first 9 games were phenomenal. We talked about even potentially being okay drafting him. Where you lost me, Lawrence, was in the very beginning when you said picking him with our first pick, pick number 6, or even trading up, meaning picking him ahead of 6. That's insane. I'll tell you, you're insane for that. You might be a genius, and you might be right. Ty Simpson's the future, but you're insane for that because he will not be going anywhere near that.
No, I am with you 100%. That is the wildest part of that whole reaction to me. And Lawrence, I appreciate you leaving the voicemail as well. I didn't get to say that yet. I think that there can be upside to Ty Simpson. I said in our last video that it scares me that he's going to end up being the Jackson Dart of this class for me, where I don't think we even really talked about Dart much on the show last year. And now, obviously, he's shown enough flashes where New York is moving forward with them as the franchise quarterback. So I could see him being that same type of guy here. And I wouldn't be upset if they even brought him in, just not at 6 and probably not at 24. If he falls to the second round, I'm all the way here for it.
Agreed. Here's where I feel like we're losing the plot a little bit as fans, and that is that we keep getting sold on upside. We're saying Ty Simpson has a ton of upside. Shador Sanders has a ton of upside. That's true in both cases. The thing that we're missing, the piece that we're missing, is the patience in developing these quarterbacks. That's the biggest and most important part of finding your NFL ready quarterback. Very few guys are going to start and lead their team to the playoffs in year 1 as a rookie. I mean, it
Right.
happens, but that's that's hitting that like lucky gamble, right? You're putting your money on a number on roulette and it's hitting. Like that's super rare. Developing somebody though and leaning on the upside, I think we have that in Shador Sanders for the record. We keep falling in love with these guys though, whether it's Ty Simpson or somebody else, because oh, they have flashes of this. We have a guy that's shown flashes. We have a guy that's shown flashes in the NFL. We need to develop that and be consistent, and that's what we've been lacking over the years. So I don't disagree. Like second round Ty Simpson, I'd be for it, but we need a real strategy here at this position, barring your next Manning or whatever that looks incredible. We need real strategy here though, and to stick with somebody and work through some of the growing pains.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about this too, and we haven't really got to talk about it yet, is the connection Ty does have to Todd Monken. His dad and Todd, I believe, coached together or something like that. There was some recruitment of Ty Simpson with Todd Monken at the time when Todd was in college. So there's a little rubbing of the shoulders there that could be interesting and could be a thread that continues to get pulled all the way to draft time, and then he ends up getting picked here because Todd loves him and thinks he could be that guy.
Hey, what about Sid the Sloth? Monken directly coached him.
He was another one, Carson Beck, that was mentioned. He talked about wanting to come play for Monken in at the combine. So that's another
Mhm.
one. Same thing with Drew Aller talking about. Of course, he was a childhood Browns fan and all of that. So there's still some threads and some loose threads to be pulled and whatnot for the Cleveland Browns and the quarterbacks in this class. Aside from, of course, the guy of this class, Fernando Mendoza.
Yeah, that's fair. Listen, I don't know the answer. I don't have the answer. Um, I do know that we need to do a better job at development, because the rotating door that we've had obviously isn't working.
No, it's not indeed. We also need to put some talent around him, though. Around whoever that is saying him, I
For
mean,
sure.
because that's part of the problem as well. Is there's just not enough talent around. It doesn't matter if it's Fernando Mendoza. It doesn't matter if it's Ty Simpson, Shador Sanders, Dylan Gabriel. If I need to bring him up, whoever. There's just not enough talent on the offensive side of the ball right now to breed success unless you are the Josh Allens and the Patrick Mahomes of the world at this point.
For the record, I don't think the most we could load our team with every talented wide receiver and O line in the world, and Dylan Gabriel throwing the ball into the dirt isn't going to help them catch it. But that's
That's
just me.
fair.
Maybe I've moved all the way on Gabriel.
That's fair, man. That's fair. We got a fun week of content coming up, man. I can't wait to sit down, chop it up, and talk a little Cavs, more Browns, of course. So much news coming out of the combine. It'll be a good time,
Yeah, and don't forget about those guards are at spring training at the moment.
right?
They got another win yesterday. We do have a lot of fun content coming up, and I can't wait to get to it. The debate never ends, but the show does for now. We'll see you next time.